Hello everyone, this is Mr. Mar with the final tutorial for the Type Beat project. So let's just jump right in. What you should have up until this point is a beat using probably 3, maybe 4 or 5 tracks depending on how you did the drums. Should be at least 4, I think. So I've got my instrument 1 and instrument 2 loops. So I've got a synthesizer for that and a guitar loop. I also have drum track and the bass track that I wrote. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste these loops and then start to create an arrangement so that you're not just hearing the same loops over again, but it kind of evolves. So first thing, click outside the regions, somewhere around here. You'll notice if you just click somewhere in this white space and drag, you can get this selection box. So just click where you need to. Select all 4 of your tracks, or however many there are. Control C to copy. And here's where you got to be careful about how you do this. If I try to paste it right now, it's going to tell me that it can't paste. So what I'm going to do is 2 things. First, I want to make sure that it pastes right at the end of my tracks. I don't want it there to be any gaps. So I'm going to click the number right here at the top to make sure this is perfectly in line. And then I'm going to select the top track because when you're pasting in Soundtrap, it's pasting from whichever track is selected. So if I'm trying to paste 4 tracks, but the bottom track is selected, it's not going to be able to do that. So we've got the first track selected here. One thing, and I just realized like my grid is off, right? Because I can just kind of click around. It's moving pretty smoothly. So when you're doing this, it's a really good idea to click that magnet for your snap to grid. And for your grid size, when you're doing big arrangement things like this, you can either set it to automatic or a lot of times I'll set it to a bar if I know that I am really just pasting patterns. So this way my playhead here is only moving on the bar, so there's less of a chance of me pasting this wrong. So now I'm ready. I'm gonna Control V to paste this. Do that a couple more times, and now I've got 4 copies of my beat to create an arrangement. So we're gonna create 4 different song sections. There's gonna be an intro, a verse, and a chorus. To really turn it into a full song, you just need to copy and paste your verse and your chorus a couple times. Maybe add a bridge, a little pre-chorus, something like that. So this is going to be just kind of a very, very basic arrangement. First thing we're going to do here is create an intro. Next, we're going to go from the intro to a verse. Then we're going to have the chorus here, and then finally an outro. So for the intro, you should have as few loops as possible. For a listener, it's usually good if you can kind of let them figure out what's going on in your track. If you play all the sounds at once, it's just too much to process. Some songs do start that way. It's up to preference, really. So I'm going to just have just one loop start for my intro. I'm just going to have that synth loop because it's a big part of the track and how it sounds, really. So I've got that set. Next, I'm going to go to the verse, and I'm going to take out just 1 track. So I'm going to just have 3 tracks here. So that way I can have everything come in the chorus. So now I've got my verse. The verse should have 2 to 3 tracks. If you want to do 2 there, it's up to you. I'm going to do 3 for this. Then I've got my chorus. That's where everything's going to play at the same time. And then I've got the outro. So I'm going to need to take out some sections for the outro. I think I'm actually going to take out the bass line. Even though I really do like my bass line that I wrote, it's just not going to work in that section at this time. So I could play through this whole thing. It takes about 1.5 minutes. You can actually see the timestamp down here at the bottom. So I'm not going to do that right now. But this is what it should look like once you have your arrangement copied and pasted. There should be 4 different sections. You should kind of be able to see where those sections start and stop. Your intro should have 1 loop. Verse should have 2 to 3 loops. Chorus is going to have everything. And outro should also have 2 to 3 loops. Once you have your arrangement set, you're going to create some variations in your song sections by creating what I've been calling A-B phrases. So the idea is that we're going to take each song's section, so verse, intro, chorus, outro, we're going to cut it in half. We're going to create 2 different phrases so that it's just a little bit more interesting. There's more kind of things evolving, more forward motion, instead of just feeling like it's just the same thing. So for the intro, there's, well, for any song section, there's really 2 ways to do this in Soundtrap. You're either going to find a loop from a loop pack you've already used to kind of create like a different pattern played by the same instrument, or you're going to find a totally new instrument pattern that fits your research. So I'm going to start with this one by actually looking up a new guitar chop, because I saw that this sample pack, the Raccoon 2, they've got a lot of different they've got like 6 different chops, but it's enough to really create some variation. So I'm going to pick a different guitar chop to start my intro here. I really like that for an intro because it has this kind of bright sound to it, but it doesn't have as much of a groove as the one I picked for the verse. So let's just hear what this sounds like. This is the end of my intro into my first verse. Yeah, that sounds great. So, you know, right when that song section changes, you know, you've got a new loop playing from the guitar, and we've got the drums coming in, so it just has kind of like an emotional impact at that point. So next I'm going to do the same thing for my verse. So for my verse, I'm going to add in a new instrument pattern. So I'm going to check my research here. And based on what I have right now, I want to think about what's going to cut through. Like if I try to do some strings that might, you know, kind of mix with the synthesizer that I have, because it also has that kind of like washy, warm sound to it. The synthesizer loop also has this bright kind of metallic sound, so that might clash with like bells or vibraphone. But I think a synth lead would work pretty well for this. Synth lead is a synthesizer that plays melody lines. So they're supposed to cut through and be heard, and that'll just give us kind of like a lead. I'm gonna look for synth lead here. And of course, whenever you're adding loops from your loop library, always set your scale to match your key every single time. So I'm gonna check right here. My key is G major. And I'm going to check through some of these synth loops here. Cool. Alright, I think I like that one. It's got kind of like an upbeat, fun feel to it. So, so let's see how that sounds. So I've got this part right here. This is my verse into my chorus. Cool. One thing I'm going to do to just shape this transition a little bit. This kind of step is optional. It just depends on how detailed you want to make this. And also what your song needs. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stop the drums for the last bar. So that way, when everything comes in for the chorus, it's just going to hit a little bit harder. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to loop it back here. So I've got this blank bar from the drums. And then actually to start my chorus, again, to create more variation, I'm going to change the drum pattern. Let's hear what that sounds like. Yeah. So I've got this. I got my chorus set. There's already kind of an A-B phrase going on here with the synth lead, but I'm actually going to stretch that out so it goes through here. So now I'm going to need to do something to change up the second half of this pattern. So I can change a pattern. I kind of like how this this guitar loop is going for this section. Definitely want to keep my bass loop. Don't think I need to change the synth. So I'm going to see if I can just switch up the drum pattern for the second half of this. Yeah, maybe we'll have it switched to that. And one thing that's kind of helping this blend together, because some of these drum patterns sound like slightly different, is I've got some overdrive distortion that's just kind of changing that all together. So that's one thing you can do, is just adding effects to blend different sample pack loops together. So let's hear what that sounds like. Now I've got a different drum pattern in the second half of the phrase. Cool. Yeah, I think that sounded great. I like how that worked out with creating some variation there. So here, I'm going to just pull this drum pattern back. So again, working on my A-B phrase. In this situation, it's probably going to be like more loops are playing in the beginning than the end. That's a little different from the other ones. I'm also going to change the guitar pattern here because there's a different one that I thought might sound good for an outro. Just a little bit more chill sounding. Yeah, I kind of like that for the outro. So I'm going to have that set there. And you can see that for my outro, I already have an A-B phrase. So the A phrase is just a little bit more full than the B phrase. So let's just check out my outro. So I've got my song form all mapped out, my different patterns. I've got my 4 different song sections plus my A-B phrases. So the last part of this is just making sure it's going to sound good. So first step to that is mixing. So I'm going to loop the chorus, and I'm going to follow our mixing procedure, which is first start with every track as quiet as it goes. So when you're changing these volume knobs, you think you want to go like left to right to change them. It's really up and down. That's just going to be a little easier to control it. So I'm just clicking these, dragging them straight down. I'm going to press play, and I'm going to start with my lead. So you want to think about what's your melody, what's like the main focus. A lead is usually that. So I'm going to turn this up until it sounds really nice and full. You know, without being too much. And since this is kind of a hip-hop track, I want to add in the drums next. I want to make sure that's really present in the mix. Cool. Next, I'm going to mix in the bass pattern. Lot more than I had before. Alright, I can turn that up. So next I'm going to add in the guitar chops. And these really cut through. I don't have to have these up super loud. Nice. Even right there sounds pretty good. Now I'm going to add in my synth loop just to kind of glue everything together. There we go. So that's just a more full sounding mix than I had before. So really, I'm kind of making sure that my lead melody is the strongest point, and then I had these two loops that have higher frequency sounds, and those tend to really cut through. So I actually didn't need those as loud as I had them before. So now I've got your mix. Now we can add automation, and that's going to be our last step here. You can also add effects and just kind of experiment with that. So for example, I've already added some overdrive distortion to my drum track. I did that before when I was creating this. I'm going to add some reverb to my synthesizer. So reverb is going to add that kind of washy sound, like it's in like a really big room. I'm just going to use the reverb knob on the amp here. Cool. And then actually back it off just a little bit. Cool. So that's going to give it just kind of a big, open, ethereal kind of sound. To shape this and make it work as best as it can for an intro, I'm going to add automation. So that's this button right here. You can see these lines and dots. We're definitely going to get more into this as we go. So I'm going to add automation, and we're going to do volume automation for now. So the idea with automation is you create lines using breakpoints. So I'm going to click a dot right here, because right here I want my sound to be back up to the volume that I had it before. That's what that's showing. Then I'm going to click the beginning here, create a breakpoint, and just put it down so it's pretty low. So that's going to create like a fade in. I'm going to do the same thing for the guitar loop, do volume automation, put it here, start it quiet, and let's see what that sounds like. Yeah, that sounds great. And definitely just makes it a little more interesting with that fade in, so it's not just the same thing looping. It has more, it just has more life to it. It's moving, it's evolving. So I'm going to do the same thing for my outro. Just set a little fade out here for my synth loop, and also for the guitar, because those are the other loops playing at the end there. And now I have a completed track. If you want the automation windows to go away, you just click that button again, it'll hide them. You can see it's kind of like still kind of there, just not in its own separate track, so you can still kind of see where the automation is happening. You could also add automation all over this if you want, but that would do it. I'm going to make sure to save this, very important. Also make sure the track is saved with me. And at this point, you are done the type beat. Congratulations. And again, you can go through this activity as many times as you want. This is actually something that professional producers do a lot, is try to create type beats in the style of different artists. So each time you do it, you can get a little bit more accurate, a little bit better at making music in the style of your favorite musicians. So excited to hear what y'all come up with, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.